I'm knitting the Shore Tee by Anne Ventzel, which is a lovely top-down tee. I'm using the recommended yarn Alpaca 1 and Trio 2 by Isia. So as I'm working down the body, there are these increases along a marked stitch, and the increases are yarn over increases, which can get a little bit tricky. So I just thought I'd do a video on what I've done with the pattern in terms of this the stitch markers that I've used instead of marking this stitch. So it's a paid for pattern, so I don't want to give too much away, but you have this marked stitch and you actually put a stitch marker or like a locking stitch marker on the stitch, and the instructions are about creating yarn overs on either side of the marked stitch. I do find that can be just a little bit tricky to keep track, so what I've done is put a stitch marker on either side of the marked stitch. You might find that just helpful. The other thing that is a little bit tricky is with yarn over increases. The yarn over can kind of move a little bit in terms of it can want to jump in front of the stitch in front of it, and it can get hard to identify. So with a stitch marker on either side of the marked stitch, you know that the yarn over must be directly before the stitch marker or directly after. So I have found that helpful, but it still does look a little bit tricky when you come to it. So I'm just going to knit up to it, and what you're meant to do is knit that yarn over there, and that was a backwards yarn over, but you can see how it's trying to jump in front of all the other stitches before it. That yarn over actually belongs all the way back here, so I actually have to knit, there's 2 stitches before it, but the yarn over is trying to jump in front of them. So just if you remember that yarn over is actually belongs right before that stitch marker, it can help you to work out, hang on, I actually need to knit that stitch next. Then I knit, this was a backwards yarn over, so when you knit into the front of it, I'm just going to pull it out so I can knit into the front of it, it looks like a make one right in terms of the way that the increase angles, but you haven't actually had to grab the yarn from the row below. So then you do a backwards yarn over. This here is the marked stitch, but I've put a stitch marker on that side of it. Knit the center, which would have been that's the marked stitch. Now here, that's the yarn over, but I actually need to create a yarn over first. That will be where I'll knit that through the back loop on the next round, and then I need to knit this yarn over, and see how it's actually moving back on the other side of this. So that's actually the next stitch. So I've got my yarn over ready for the next round, and then I have to knit this yarn over through the back loop, and that way that one looks like a make one left. And I'll just knit a couple of stitches past it so you can see. So here, that's my yarn over, but do you see how even there it's trying to jump ahead of the stitches in front of it? But I know that when I get to that marker again, that actually is the last stitch, and I have to sort of move it closer here. And then there's my regular yarn over, which I'll knit through the back loop. So I don't know if that is helpful for you, perhaps if you've been knitting this pattern and you've been getting a little bit stuck with those yarn overs moving themselves around to where they don't belong. Perhaps if you put a stitch marker on either side of the marked stitch, and remember that the yarn over actually always belongs right before or right after a stitch marker. So hopefully you found that helpful.